Whitewashing, blackwashing, and representation are all terms that are being talked about that will help you go viral for all the wrong reasons. I'm approaching this subject not as a scholar or expert, but as someone who is a Christian and fellow fan of nerd things. This topic of conversation is not new to the world of fiction. Honestly, I feel like I'm mad late to it, but this particular topic piqued my interest because of the recent Dandadan story that went viral. If you don't know about the story, there was a 16-year-old artist who reimagined Momo and Okaroon from the popular Dandadan show as a black or African American features. What seemed like a harmless fan art garnered in crazy negative pushback that Lynn, the 16-year-old artist, temporarily privated her account because she was being harassed by people who honestly didn't like her work. She was being accused of blackwashing and hypocrisy, and the reality of this matter is that Lynn actually did nothing wrong. A 16-year-old aspiring artist could do nothing wrong when it comes to this fan art, just like how any other types of fan art is okay. The reality is that she was an easy target for people who feel like they're fed up with the quote-unquote DEI agenda and having certain characters take on a different color or ethnicity for the sake of diversity. Now, I have my thoughts, and you will get them throughout this video, but I have my boy Ren the Governor, who is a manga artist and has been an artist his entire life, chime in on this topic as well, because I think he offers good perspective on a topic that he is more familiar with than I am. But first, I want to navigate this idea of blackwashing, because for us to even have a meaning for this word, we got to go back to where it all started. Whitewashing is a term used for Hollywood that would cast all white actors to play roles that have been created to display a certain ethnic group. Think about movies like Ghost in the Shell, Dragon Ball Evolution, John Wayne and Genghis Khan depicting a historical figure, Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's depicting an Asian man, and many other movies. People rightfully criticize these types of movies and the actors that portrayed these characters because it took away opportunities from these roles to be depicted accurately. And I get it, these filmmakers wanted to make money by having the famous names, but it sucks. But it goes deeper than that because, a good portion of American history, a lack of representation in American fiction, there are a ton of white characters that were created that, to be honest, a lot of us enjoyed growing up and still do to this day. Batman, Superman, Iron Man, The Flash, Wonder Woman, Ben 10. On top of that, a bunch of anime characters that the black community grew up on that we were fond of. Naruto, Goku, Sailor Moon, and so on. But this isn't to dismiss black characters that have shown up on the scene that have made waves. But oftentimes when people get asked who their favorite characters are, especially anime fans, they're usually someone who is different from them ethnically. So because of their admiration and appreciation, what comes out of this is fan art. There have been black Gokus and black Narutos and black Yusuke's that have been drawn for years because a lot of the African American people like anime, which brings us to this question. Is blackwashing and anime going too far? To help me navigate this conversation a little bit more, let me bring in my guy Ren the Governor to give us his perspective. People that don't know who you are, of course I know who you are, tell at least my audience who you are and what do you do.
Yes, so my name is Noah. I go by Ren the Governor on socials, any social you can find me, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. I am a Christian manga artist and author. I write the story Hunters of Illumis, which is a shonen fantasy action adventure story following the main character Ume, a young woman trying to become a shadow hunter in a world that was overtaken by shadows after man sinned against God and shadows overtook the earth. I put a lot of like political, social, and biblical themes within it. Just this fantasy world that I created. So that's what I do. That's how I know about. Like I've been doing art for ever since I could pick up a pencil. So as a Black creator, I have like a lot of different stakes and stuff within different things within the art community and different things within what I hear and what I see. So it's like it pertains to the conversation at hand.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you, Noah, and also just having my audience listen to a conversation like this is because, first of all, I trust you. Like we've been brothers for, I don't know, like maybe close on like 10 years at this point.
I think we're at like nine years or something.
Yeah, it's been a little bit, and so we've been through a lot together for sure. And so I trust you with my life, and also with the expertise that you bring to the table. I trust you even more in this conversation, more than my giving my own opinion, even though I have given my own opinion on this thing, right? So for context of this conversation, recently, maybe a few weeks ago, there was a lot of backlash for a 16-year-old girl named Lynn or whatever over Twitter, and she got a lot of backlash because of she did a Black fan art of Dandadan's characters Okarun and Momo, and a lot of people like really like, yo, this is fire, like we love this, like keep doing these things. They were even recommending different anime that she should also do it as well. But then there was this shift from joy and excitement from this creation over to, I guess, Japanese Twitter or just a bunch of different people being like, yo, this is racist. What's going on here? Why would you do this? Like, if we took one of your characters, like if we took Black Panther and made him White Panther, you guys would be outraged about that. And so for me, I was like, all right, that y'all kind of y'all are bugging right now by doing this, because they were bullying her, death threats, all the different things, right? And what's weird is that it's not a new thing. It's actually pretty common. Like, I don't know how common. You probably know more than me, being longer in this space, but it's like, to me, it was really interesting. So as a Black creator and have your own manga, right? What did you think of this? When you heard this story, did you hear this story? What were your thoughts about this? I already know you have some thoughts, but we'll save the drama for later. But what are your thoughts about, first of all, this incident and this overall, like, fans of anime or manga or whatever, drawing their characters as whatever, changing their ethnicity, changing their features. What is that? How do you feel about that?
So I would say, first and foremost, I do not condone or agree with people being bullied for anything like this. I don't condone or agree with people giving death threats or like forcing people off of the internet, because if you don't like it, I think the internet is easily, you don't like it, keep it moving. That's how I see it. That's how I operate in most things. If I don't like something, unfollow the person. If I don't like something, I block the person. Or I just don't engage with it so it doesn't show up on my feed anymore. So that's where I put the line at, like how we handle these kind of situations as people who aren't the creators. But I do think overall, in the sense of the situation, it is, I would say, a little overblown. I think a lot of people sometimes aren't often considering all of the social implications. Even though we talk about this stuff all the time, there's always somebody new coming up with this stuff. It's almost like how I think about it all the time. I could only imagine so many people have seen someone or seen a car accident throughout their life driving, but then you always end up seeing somebody in a car accident. It's like, it's just because everyone knows that this thing can happen doesn't mean that everyone's considering it until it happens to them. So I don't think people are always going into these spaces, creating these fan arts, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to make these social, socially charged or politically charged, like, art pieces. Like, they're just going to do it to make it fun because they want to, I don't know if they want to see themselves in it or whatnot. I have some opinions on that as well, in terms of seeing yourselves in media. But I think generally speaking, I wouldn't as an artist do it. I personally don't like fan art. I personally don't like doing fan art, and I
Yeah, I know
find
how
it
you
quite,
feel about that.
yeah, I find it quite boring overall, just because there's no real creative aspect in it for me. I'm not making anything new. I'm literally using references of these things that are already made, probably adding nothing really special to the medium as a whole, and just to either sell it or get a bunch of likes because it's a character that everyone like recognizes. I just don't really do fan art, and I'm not a huge person who's like, let me hop on doing fan art for this show. Like, and mind you, Don and I has been around for quite a while, so it's just getting into the mainstream because I've caught up on the manga, and it's probably like 140 chapters in, so it's been around for a decent amount of time before the animes even come around. So the fact that this is a conversation now, it's also like the whole mainstream kind of talk and da da da. So it's like I really think a lot of the fan art that's coming around is like really hopping on. I've seen people who've been drawing down and on way before, and their fan art I legitimize a little more just because like they knew about it before it was like around. But I'm not saying people are more legitimate in somebody's fan art if they hopped on before or after. But I'm just saying it's definitely hopping into this like mainstream area, and I think that's why this conversation is even as big as it is. So generally, I wouldn't do it. Generally, I wouldn't really take myself as a part of it. But I can see both sides to an extent. Outside of the bullying, I can see how both sides would want to do something.
Did you catch that? What Noah said was pretty significant when it comes to what people nowadays calls a politically charged conversation. Most people who are doing fan art of something aren't making fan art to promote an agenda. Most people are honestly creating fan art of their favorite characters because they think it's really cool, and there might be a portion of wanting to see themselves in their favorite characters. But then we're needing to have a conversation of whether something is appropriating the art, meaning making something without giving credit to the source material or original owner, or just is it appreciation? What some people don't understand about our current world is that we live in a culture of mixed cultures. In the book Plugged In by Daniel Strange, he takes on the task of talking about how what we watch, play, and read all connect to the Christian faith, which I obviously agree. But he highlights this term called hybridity, which he defines as recognizing that we seem to be made of a mix of cultural identities. He then goes on to say on the next page is that it's rap and hip hop that originated straight out of Compton, has gone worldwide to inspire British rap, French rap, and more. It's making the old new again. It's Star Wars The Force Awakens, a resurgence of vinyl records, and more. To add on, it's black kids enjoying and being inspired by Japanese culture. It's Japanese people being inspired by black culture and adding their own spin to it, which can be a beautiful thing, separated from the annoying politics thrown onto people just trying to enjoy their lives. I saw someone say this on social media the other day, but it seems like every time someone draws a fictional character being black, there's always this outrage. But when there's fan art of people's favorite characters being drawn in a sexually explicit way, gender swapping, or you have anime fans that don't like the ending of a show, they create an alternate ending. They don't get any flack for it. And it's just how people are appreciating the art. It's actually kind of crazy, but I wanted to go a little deeper with my friend Noah on the idea of everything, including anime and manga, whatever, in our world being so politically charged now and always under scrutiny of the anti-woke crowd. I think Noah's opinion is pretty interesting, mainly as he talks about this from an artist perspective.
But I think generally speaking, I wouldn't as an artist do it. I personally don't like fan art. I personally don't like doing fan art, and I find it quite, I find it quite boring overall, just because there's no real creative aspect in it for me. I'm not making anything new. I'm literally using references of these things that are already made, probably adding nothing really special to the medium as a whole, and just to either sell it or get a bunch of likes because it's a character that everyone like recognizes. I just don't really do fan art, and I'm not a huge person who's like, let me hop on doing fan art for this show. Like, and mind you, Don and I have been around for quite a while, so it's just getting into the mainstream because I've caught up on the manga, and it's probably like 140 chapters in, so it's been around for a decent amount of time before the animes even come around. So the fact that this is a conversation now, it's also like the whole mainstream kind of talk and da. So it's like I really think a lot of the fan art that's coming around is like really hopping on. I've seen people who've been drawing Dandadan way before, and their fan art, I legitimize a little more just because like, you know, they knew about it before it was like, you know, around. But I'm not saying people are more legitimate in somebody's fan art if they hopped on before or after. But I'm just saying it's definitely hopping into this like mainstream area, and I think that's why this conversation is even as big as it is. So generally, I wouldn't do it. Generally, I wouldn't really take myself as a part of it. But I can see both sides to an extent. Outside of the bullying, I can see how both sides would want to do something. So that's really the stance I take. From my own like if we're talking generally from my own personal experience, I have plenty of things I can think about. But if I was to be someone who's supposed to be a mediator, I'd be like, all right, I get what both of you guys are saying, but we can be civil about it and just agree to disagree.
Yeah, no. What you said earlier, you said a word that was interesting. You said politically kind of charged when it comes to creating I guess in these spaces, right? And I think as of late, honestly, for the past like 8 years, 10 years, I don't know. I feel like since I got out of high school, things have been like kind of crazy on the political end. But like it seems like a lot of different things are politically charged for one reason or another, and especially when it comes to fantasy art, whatever, there is some sort of political undertones to it now. And so it's like if you're not catering to one people group, you're catering to another people group, and it kind of creates this divisiveness that comes with it, right? And honestly, anime manga is exempt from that, and I feel like it's been a thing for a while, for probably forever. But especially now, like I guess on our end, I see it every single day on like Twitter and threads and everything of DI and woke and all these different things being labeled on something that's like, a person of color is doing something, or you have in this case the Dandadan fan artist, creating ethnic features on Momo Okarun, and it's like, oh, like this is woke nonsense. This is what happened. It's just like how exactly are we using this term? How are we defining it? And so why do you think that this issue, like, because I'm guessing it's been an issue forever. Honestly, I've seen black fan art around. This is my first time actually seeing like, oh, this is a thing. Besides cosplayers, I know cosplayers get black cosplayers get crap because they like dress as a certain character, right? That's dumb to me. But in this case, like, why do you think something like this is so politically charged? Like, why do you think people view it as something other than someone appreciating the art that they like to enjoy?
So I definitely do think that people of color, people who are not of either white or Asian descent, which is usually the skin tone of what these characters portray as, they usually do find flack for drawing. Like, this has been going on for years. I've seen this all the time. People getting flack for creating these characters in their skin tone or cosplaying as characters, adding their own little thing to it. But I feel like that there is this like ongoing pushback to people of color putting themselves into this space. But I think that it's really difficult because I definitely think that there is a level of bullying and people of color being pushed out, being like not wanting to be in there. But I also think that the quantities of these things aren't as frequent, and they're overblown when they do happen. Especially in this age of TikTok, where you can, like, something happens, all of a sudden it's story time for everyone to see. It's like it could be like your aunt said something, and all of a sudden you're telling a story that it gets blown out of proportion, and then everyone from like Hassan to Amala are like making critiques and comments on what you put on the internet, and then millions of people are just responding from the lens of what that person from one side have like put into what you said. So it definitely, I think it can definitely get overblown out of a way where there is a problem, definitely, but the quantity of what we see may only be within the framework that we already have an emotion towards that problem, and therefore when it does happen, it solidifies that it happens, but then it's just like, oh, you see, this happens, and we need we need justice, we need this fixed, and it's like really only like not that, it's not as many people as you would think, and then even on that sense, on that side of it, I definitely think a lot of people are like, on the other side, I think a lot of people are just tired of a lot of these a lot of the double standard. That's like, I'm just being upfront about it. I think there is a double standard to people who make white or Asian characters black, and then people who make black characters lighter skinned. Like, we're not even talking about switching them completely white. We're just talking about lighter skinned characters. I've honestly seen it more frequently. People who make, like, Asians, especially Asian artists, who may know squat about anything about like proper skin tone, black people, like, or may not just be comfortable diving into putting a darker skin tone on something, because that's something we don't talk about as well. Like, sometimes I even just refuse to put shadows, like just like, because I do manga black and white. Sometimes there's some shadows I don't put in because I don't know if I feel comfortable working with certain darker values in the effect that I want to do. So I pull back and I refuse, and I just step away from it. So I'm not saying that necessarily gives them a pass. I think as an artist, because I think giving caveats and nuance to it, as an artist, I think you should be studying these things. Like, you shouldn't just dive into something and be like, oh, I'm not comfortable with it, so I'm not going to do it. But especially when it could be touchy, depending on what you know and what you don't know. Like I said, going back to what I said earlier, some people might not step into this being like, oh, like this might be politically charged, this might be an issue. So I'm not saying that everyone has to, but I would definitely think, like, really try to study and know your stuff when you step into something that you're pretty unsure about or unaware of. But I've definitely seen people, like, in real time getting bullied off the internet because they made what was that one Pokemon trainer, I want to say her name was like Nessa or something like that, was like made her too light skinned. And
this is about like black fans like that. But
it would be black people who would then critique and bully these Asian artists or these people from overseas off the internet because they made it's not that they made her white, they just made her a lighter skin tone than what made the people around them comfortable. So I think that people are definitely tired of that double standard of what is perceived, and I understand both. I understand how people could be upset of people making black character skin tones lighter, especially when they're darker, but I also understand that it's like, you don't have to be pushing people off the internet for that either. You can agree to disagree on that and just let it be, because these are still original characters that people will perceive in their own way. I mean, people draw Princess Daisy dark skin. Like, Daisy is not a dark skinned woman. It's like in the Super Mario like canon, like, she's just another white woman, just like Princess Peach. For sure. So it's like there's that kind of double standard where, like, we can easily make a character look like us, but it would be an issue if if somebody else not just made them white, but pushed them totally out the way. And I think people are definitely tired of that. And I think that this is just another result of, unfortunately, people making an example of something that pretty innocent, no one should be caring about it, no one should be passing on it, but people choose, like, okay, like, y'all want to step into this now, like, okay, we're going to make an example out of this, and this is going to be the moment that all you guys know that we're not playing anymore.
It's like, we're gonna come out guns blazing and be like, I bet, come mess with us now. Like, it's kind of giving that, and it's kind of giving that energy where, and it's it comes out like really, really strong because like usually when mob mentality, I talked about this in one of my like videos I just dropped, like mob mentality is a thing, right? So you have one person that kind of just like is like, yo, this is the worst thing ever. Like you get I know I use the example that we used earlier, like Hassan, right? Or there's this other guy named, I think his name is Penguins or something like that. I don't know. So it's one of these. I'm blanking on his name. Not Hassan. He has like white hair. He has like long hair. He's a white dude. He uploads no thumbnails whatsoever, but gets 20 million views just off of just uploading the video. Like he's really popular. But he's a guy that like he can talk about anything. And if he could talk about like I don't know, he could talk about this situation or whatever, blackwashing characters, and he's like, yo, no, this is dumb. Like this shouldn't happen. Most likely all 20 million of those people are gonna be like, yeah, we agree, and now we're gonna hunt this person down because mob mentality is a real thing, right? Yeah. I also agree too, like with you said, like sort of the double standard, right? I think if people are honest, and I think the reason why people aren't, so I won't say all black people that are in this space, right? Some black people aren't honest because they feel as though if they are honest about the double standard that they're presenting, that it takes away from what they're actually trying to do, right? And I think that kind of hurts the case a little bit because it's like, okay, bet like you, and this is all for people on all sides, right? Where we're kind of putting blinders like on like the things that we don't necessarily want to address that are kind of hurting what we're trying to go after, and be like, okay, bet we're gonna focus on this. We're gonna, if like there's any outside noise, we got to just be like, it's not a real thing. Which I've seen that, like people being like, no, like you can't have a double standard because of yada yada yada, right? Or and it's kind of, okay, we won't go there anyway. But it's like people are like, like, yeah, you can't have a double standard because of like systems in place in the majority culture or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but okay, cool. Like, I think you could agree with that. I think in a sense, like I get seen in the and which I probably more lean to, where it's like, okay, bet like if you have a character that's created that has a specific skin tone for a certain reason, right, and it plays into the story, like it's like, okay, bet you might be doing a little bit of damage if you have a person that kind of creates this character, and it's like, okay, bet like they're taking away from the black experience because they made this person lighter skin, where in the black experience, lighter skinned people and darker skinned people may experience life totally different, which like I think for in the black African American space, and I think I want to limit my language as far as like all black people, because I know all black people don't necessarily think like this, right? But in the African American space, this is a thing, right? Because of the things that our ancestors and people now and what we can experience right now, right? And so like I think in that sense, I'm like, okay, but like maybe that's not a double standard, but the bullying, but the being like, yo, you're gonna run everybody off the internet that does something that's harmful, that we think is harmful to the space, because like that shouldn't happen. It's like, okay, cool, like maybe it shouldn't, but like how are we setting a better example if we are doing the same thing that we don't want those people doing to us, basically?
And even what you're saying with how you said like it necessarily, unless the skin tone plays a part in the character's role, like you probably couldn't make a white version of a Spike Lee joint. You probably could. No, it wouldn't work. But there are a lot of stories where characters' skin tone and just their gender even doesn't play a part really in the role. Doesn't really play a part in who the character is. And that's used on both ends of the argument. Like sometimes, like the new movie that's coming out, How to Train Your Dragon. They're making a live action How to Train Your Dragon, and they've casted everyone pretty much to the T, except for what's her name? The female lead, who's the love interest. I forget her name right now, but they made her a black woman. Okay. And I haven't heard anyone really talk about it. I think I heard I maybe watched like one video about it. But I definitely come off of this in the sense where it's like because How to Train Your Dragon is like that's one of my favorite series of all time. So to see that, I can look at it both ways. Okay, her skin tone doesn't really matter to the story, but also the skin tone doesn't really matter to the story, so why'd you change it? Yeah. So it's like it kind of plays either way. It makes it a like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because they're actually not. I would even take back on that because it's not really a damned if you don't. It's more, it's really like if you do, either you just know what you're doing. Like I think most of the time, if people make that decision, that conscious decision, they know what they're doing. I'll backtrack on what I said a second ago. I definitely think that people know what they're doing, especially when you cast somebody outside of everybody else you casted, just white male. Like this is back in like the back in the Viking times, Nordic, all that kind of stuff, mythology, and then you put one black woman in there. It's like just kicks and giggles. It's like you knew what you were doing, regardless of how well that person made that role. You pretty much knew what you were doing.
Yeah, true. And I feel like maybe most people wouldn't be like, that upset, and people are just maybe upfront, like with it. And this is the same, like if they were upfront with the intention to being like, yeah, I wanted to put her as a black woman because I wanted to, like, cool. Like you could be upset about that, but you're upset for the right reason, and like, or you're having people upset at you for the right reason, instead of like you have to like kind of be like, no, like it doesn't matter to the story. Where it's like, I mean, sure, but like, you can also say you just wanted to, like,
it's like you just wanted to. When I went back, like there's a couple characters that I went back on one of my older stories that I recreated them, and I ended up making them like black instead of white, because I was like, I don't have a lot of black characters, and it's like because I started that when I was like way younger, and so there weren't a lot of black characters when I first made the story. But I think they're pretty much trolls, but like I had people who were just like, oh, like great for making them like monkeys or something crazy. So some kind of crazy like terminology that like saying something outrageous, and I'm like, guys, these are my characters. It's like I can change them however I want. It's like I can do whatever I want with any of these characters. Even Hunters of Illuminus, there are a lot of human characters. When it really started to get its fantasy identity, I made a lot of characters fantasy characters. Like there's a lot of characters I have within the story that were originally just humans, but I was like, no, this isn't going to work. I got to make them something, a different race to add to the people who are in there. There's just too many humans in the story. Like I need to add more. So it's like, even with that, it's like it's just changing. It's not even about the race or the gender. It's also the species. Like if it doesn't play a part in the story, or it doesn't change the relationships between the characters, what does it matter? But then it's also like I said, on the other end, why did you do that? It doesn't matter. So why did you make that huge change? And as the creator, you can easily just say, because I wanted to. I think that's the most honest answer and the most genuine answer that you can give to anybody. I just wanted to. Like I genuinely think, not to go too far for answering any more questions, but I think just like, I think that we need to stop making characters and artwork deeper than what they are. I think that people can be, and I say this as someone who's heavily inspired by anime and manga. At the end of the day, these are still just stories to me. These characters are still just characters. They haven't changed my life to the point that their identity is so important. If somebody goes in and makes a character different, I'm not going to be up in arms about it, because at the end of the day, the creator has full ability to change anything. I'll be a little confused, maybe, but that's about it. I won't be so enraged that I will bully anybody who makes a fan art, or the creator who changes up something that didn't play in my headcanon or whatnot, and then get so frustrated. I think that there is a level where we have to disconnect from these characters and say, you know what? They are just characters. So we don't have to be upset that someone changed their skin tone on the internet.
I want to hunker down on some of what Noah and I were just talking about a moment ago, because I could already see if someone were to watch this part would think, we're full of it. for seeming to agree that there is a double standard taking place when it comes to this conversation. I think we do live in a reality that has been structured without Black people in mind. However, I think this country specifically has made significant strides to be better. Not perfect, of course. I might be eating my words because of all the stuff that's happening in the world right now. But, when we're interacting with people made in the image of God on the internet, oftentimes we forget that the person that you just cussed out, doxed, or whatever, humiliated online because you didn't like the way they did a fan art or your favorite character is kind of crazy. It's actually sad that this happens, but unfortunately, mob mentality isn't just in the circle of anti-woke people who hate to see certain characters change. On the other side, prominent creators can add fuel to the fire as well. Creators that create content addressing negativity in the community, which, I think there is a time and a place. Like, I do that occasionally, but is it beneficial? Or is it just making us more outraged? The reality of the content world, and especially engaging in controversial topics like blackwashing, whitewashing, DEI, or whatever, people are against it and people who are supportive are both on the side of the same coin. In my opinion, and blackwashing in fiction doesn't, and whitewashing in a sense doesn't matter as much because these things are fictional, not real, made up. There's really only a handful of characters that I can really think of that have been blackwashed. And I know recently with this new Harry Potter series, they are casting Severus Snape to be a Black dude. Might be a little interesting, especially if you care about the integrity of the story. But again, it's fiction. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, most of the stuff doesn't impact our daily lives like that. It's mostly just for people like me and you to have an opinion piece on and go about our day. Hopefully we get famous from it. Over our conversation, when I asked you like, yo, what do you think about this like conversation? You highlighted that you kind of get a pet peeve that the creators like they kind of highlight this like negativity and sort of elevate it and give it a voice. And it's like, well, and you felt like, yo, this wasn't really, this isn't doing anything to what you're actually trying to do. And so, like, speak a little bit more into that, because I think what you said was really valuable. And I felt like I was like in the video, I was like, yo, I should quote this, whatever. But I was like, I'm just like, say yourself, you know what I mean? So like, yo, like explain that a little bit more, like, because I think that I had this feeling over the past couple of days. I'm just like, bro, like. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like highlighting like negative things, like what is it exactly doing, right? And I think, especially as Christians, like, yo, what is it actually doing, right? And in the sense, it can do some stuff, but like speak into that a little bit more, because I want you to dive into that really quick.
I definitely think from like a Christian standpoint, we pointing out the negative, we can guide people away from things, but I think that there's a issue when it becomes like most of our content, most of the things that we talk about, most of the things that we discuss, it becomes that kind of thing where people say like, like we stand for Christ, so it should be more about what we stand for and less of what we are against, because we're not leading people just away from hell, like, because you can't do that on your own power. No one comes to the Father but through Christ Jesus. So we have to lead them to the one who can lead them to the Father. So at the end of the day, there's still an aspect that we can lead them away from things, but I think there has to be our content has to be very much full with like what we're leading them to. In the context of this whole discussion around like Black creators, they say that they embody this like, this comfort, welcoming space, and I think a lot of people are probably welcome in their space. But I think it goes back to that mob mentality thing that you were talking about, that because I think one thing is weird about most of these discussions that we have is on one hand, out of our one hand, we'll say, oh, it's just a couple of weirdos in their basement, not really like caring about
shots.
But then out of the same breath, we'll make content about the things that these people are saying and then say, look at this problem that's in the community. It's like, so are they just a small amount of weirdos who live in their mom's basement, or is it an actual problem in our community as artists and anime fans and nerds and geeks and all that kind of stuff? So I just think that there is just a mixed message being set out here about it. And I think oftentimes when you make your content being like, look at what this person's saying, you need to go get some help, like, and stop trying to do this because we're just trying to love who we are and love each other. It's like, well, I feel like your content should be surrounding what people are actually doing that are good. I think you're not doing any different than fear mongering and creating a following based off of that people are seeing the problem, and then you're just giving them a reason to be like, oh, show me what the new problem is, show me what the new thing I can be mad about is. And I just think that's disingenuous and just not very helpful to the actual issue at hand. And then you're only talking into a tunnel, you're only talking into a funnel. You're not going to get those people who don't care about the scenario, who don't really care if people are making characters black or characters white or characters light skin or characters dark skin. You're not going to get them to switch sides because it's not a side switching situation. At the end of the day, in reality, it's not really that crazy. It's not a crazy idea. And I think that the creators who do that bank too much on that, but then put it under the guise that they're trying to make a community that's like welcoming and helpful and like really, really loving on people. And I just think that that's not as, even though it might have started at a good heart, I think when you make your content surrounding the things that the bad thing that people are saying and the negativity that people are bringing to your community, I think it only creates more problems and it doesn't actually do what you set to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and this is, negativity, even though it's not like the negativity that like, it's like what they're saying, what they're speaking into, like how they're speaking about the negativity may not be negative to them, but in a sense, it's still negative, right? And the fact that like us as people, we gravitate to negativity. It's what is in most of our culture, like fear, negativity, negative emotion, all these different things. Like if you're able to capitalize on them, most likely you're gonna have people engage with you and like seeing, okay, what makes you different, and then like you see you're different, and okay, bet, cool, like we're gonna keep doing it. And it's unfortunate, like it's the way that just most of our social media runs now. It's just like everything has to be negative, right? And it's only very rarely that like you have people that like only like they're thriving just off of straight positive content. Well, this is maybe more on the social media side because it can you kind of have to, I guess, play it fair, like a little bit of a balance game, whatever, but it's still negativity nonetheless, right? And so I think my last question is, and you've spoken to this a little bit, how as Christians, right? Like, and Fried Ink, like you, Kai, me, like how can like and other Christian artists, right? Like, and just creators, whatever, like how can we be different in this space that one, like
the new movie that's coming out, How to Train Your Dragon, they're making a live action How to Train Your Dragon, and they've casted everyone pretty much to the T except for what's her name, the female lead, who's the love interest. I forget her name right now, but they made her a black woman.
Okay.
And I haven't heard anyone really talk about it. I think I heard I maybe watched like one video about it, but I definitely come off of this in the sense where it's like because How to Train Your Dragon is like that's one of my favorite series of all time. So to see that, I can look at it both ways. Okay, her skin tone doesn't really matter to the story, but also the skin tone doesn't really matter to the story, so why'd you change it?
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
it kind of plays either way. It makes it a like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because they're actually not. I would even take back on that because it's not really a damned if you don't. It's more, it's really like if you do, either you just know what you're doing. Like I think most of the time, if people make that decision, that conscious decision, they know what they're doing. I'll backtrack on what I said a second ago. I definitely think that people know what they're doing, especially when you cast somebody outside of everybody else you casted, just white male. Like this is back in like the back in the Viking times, Nordic, all that kind of stuff, mythology, and then you put one black woman in there. It's like just kicks and giggles. It's like you knew what you were doing, regardless of how well that person made that role. You pretty much knew what you were doing.
Yeah, true. And I feel like maybe most people wouldn't be like that upset, and people are just maybe upfront like with it. And this is the same, like like if they were upfront with the intention to being like, yeah, I wanted to put her as a black woman because I wanted to, like, cool. Like you could be upset about that, but you're upset for the right reason, and like, or you're having people upset at you for the right reason, instead of like you have to like kind of be like, no, like it doesn't matter to the story. Where it's like, I mean, sure, but like you can also say you just wanted to, like,
it's like you just wanted to. When I went back, like there's a couple characters that I went back on one of my older stories that I recreated them, and I ended up making them like black instead of white, because I was like, I don't have a lot of black characters, and it's like because I started that when I was like way younger, and so there weren't a lot of black characters when I first made the story. But I think they're pretty much trolls, but like I had people who were just like, oh, like great for making them like monkeys or something crazy, so some kind of crazy like terminology that like saying something outrageous, and I'm like, guys, these are my characters. It's like I can change them however I want. It's like I can do whatever I want with any of these characters. Even in Hunters of Loomis, there are a lot of human characters. When it really started to get its fantasy identity, I made a lot of characters fantasy characters. Like there's a lot of characters I have within the story that were originally just humans, but I was like, no, this isn't going to work. I got to make them a different race to add to the people who are in there. There's just too many humans in the story. Like I need to add more. So it's like, even with that, it's just changing. It's not even about the race or the gender. It's also the species. Like if it doesn't play a part in the story, or it doesn't change the relationships between the characters, what does it matter? But then it's also like I said, on the other end, why did you do that? It doesn't matter. So why did you make that huge change? And as the creator, you can easily just say, because I wanted to. I think that's the most honest answer and the most genuine answer that you can give to anybody. I just wanted to. Like I genuinely think, like not to go too far for answering any more questions, but I think I think that we need to stop making characters and artwork deeper than what they are. I think that people can be, and I say this as someone who's heavily inspired by anime and manga. At the end of the day, these are still just stories to me. These characters are still just characters. They haven't changed my life to the point that their identity is so important. If somebody goes in and makes a character different, I'm not going to be up in arms about it, because at the end of the day, the creator has full ability to change anything. Change anything. I'll be a little confused, maybe, but that's about it. I won't be so enraged that I will bully anybody who makes a fan art, or the creator who changes up something that didn't play in my headcanon or whatnot, and then get so frustrated. I think that there is a level where we have to disconnect from these characters and say, you know what? They are just characters. So we don't have to be upset that someone changed their skin tone on the internet.
Fan art cosplay is fair game and should be left to that. People who admire an anime show or series should be able to have the freedom to create and reimagine a character how they see fit, because if we're being honest, it doesn't take away from the source material, it doesn't take away from the integrity of the show or disrespect the show or any type of way. Some people claim it does. I disagree. If we were bent on integrity, then that Attack on Titan fan trailer that was made, Dragon Ball Abridged.
Hey, wait, they're all missing. He can't sense my energy. Ha! You can't sense my energy.
Those Goku versus Saitama, Goku versus Superman, Goku versus every single anime character you can think of is also disrespectful because it deviates from the original source material. And to be honest, none of us think that. Especially if you grew up looking up Super Saiyan transformations that went past Super Saiyan 4. Come on now. But I want to give the people on this channel and people who may see this later a perspective on this whole thing, or at least a Christ-centered perspective as best as I can. That may differ from my other fellow YouTubers who may feel differently about this subject, which is okay. I can understand that. I can understand why you would feel kind of upset that the characters that you might love and adore are being attacked, that the characters that you saw yourself in growing up and see yourself in now feel like they're being taken from you because of the DEI, which isn't. But can I ask a question? If you see your favorite character's skin and ethnic features change, does that take away from you relating to the character? Let's just use Goku because he's the most popular and mainstream character. Goku is known to be strong, to be fearless, to not back down from a challenge, but he's humorous, fun, is an okay dad, but protects the people he loves, and will go the distance with any enemy he faces. All the things we actually look for in heroes, just like Superman. If Goku's appearance changes, if Superman becomes black, does that take away from the attributes of the character? I don't think so, because every ethnic group has admired and wanted to be like Goku in some type of way, or Superman, because his impact crosses ethnic and cultural boundaries, because that's what fan art is supposed to do. It's kind of like what Anthony Mackie said about Captain America not really being a symbol of America, but a symbol of how like we all should inspire to, or something like that. I know he got a lot of heat for it, but as soon as I read that tweet or read the interview or whatever, it made sense. Everyone should aspire to be like Captain America, whether you are American or not. Does he necessarily stand for American ideals? I don't. Maybe he does. He was created in the Nazi Germany period or whatever. But this is also the same America that fought against the government, that disagreed with him, that took in a fugitive and beat up Iron Man and nearly killed him and caused the Civil War. So like, I don't know. That Captain America movie is actually going to be pretty fire, and I can't wait to watch that, John. I don't want to continue beating a dead horse, but pointing us to another perspective to bring this blackwashing, whitewashing subject around. In the Christian story, God has invited all people from different tribes, tongues, and nations to believe and trust in the person and work of the Lord Jesus, who took on humanity's sin so that we could be in relationship with a holy God. And over a 2,000-year period, that has happened and continues to happen today. But with Christianity integrating in different cultures, people and artists, in a sense, would make fan art of this Jewish Jesus. Asian, African, European, and most likely this Jewish Jesus looked more Middle Eastern. But these people who made fan art of Jesus didn't make it in a way to disrespect or deviate from the source material of who Jesus was as a Hebrew Middle Eastern man. They created these works of art, in my opinion, to show that Jesus and his sacrifice to bring people in relationship with God did not just stop at the Jews, but to every ethnicity and culture, just like Scripture says. These paintings, I believe, were to show that Jesus was offering them eternal life as well, no matter who they are or what they look like, that the gospel of the cross transcends culture. I think on a much lesser scale, we wouldn't think whitewashing or blackwashing is too big of a deal if we saw that people are just admiring the art and anime and the characters that they've grown to love. But instead of thinking that, we think there are nefarious reasons, which some people do, but most likely it's not. In my opinion, I believe the best way to not be so pressed over these trivial issues is to give your life to Jesus, my friend, because it's through Jesus that we can look at this trivial matters and realize that they don't actually matter. I mean, honestly, if you're claiming that anything is woke and you're not a Christian, what moral reasoning do you even have to claim that something is quote unquote woke or wrong? You have no moral grounding to stand on. So, my friend, if you're a conservative that is a conservative, fan of anime or comics or whatever, at least be a Christian so you can have some moral reasoning behind why you are mad at what you're mad at. Because if you're not a Christian, why exactly are you mad about anything? Sorry, that was a side rant. What matters more behind the fan art of a 16-year-old girl that you disagree with is the 16-year-old girl herself, who is made in the image of God and is just wanting to show off her ability. So I don't know where you're at or how you feel, but I think it's worth taking a step back next time when another fan art controversy takes place and asks, does this actually apply or affect my real life? And if you sit back and you think about it, guaranteed it probably doesn't. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, sub, and comment all the things. Cool. I'll catch you later.